Esper Sovereign Individualism constitutes a coherent doctrinal framework that affirms the co-equal authority of every individual to interpret and express the full spectrum of law alongside any official administrator or collective governance structure. Within this framework, law encompasses positive statutory provisions, natural principles of justice and liberty, cultural and ethnic norms, and the temporal realities that shape their application. Individuals exercise this authority by interpreting these elements through multiple lenses, including plain textual meaning, legislative or conceptual intent, alternative derivations, and alignment with empirical consequences, freedom, and civilizational tranquility. The doctrine rejects the notion that interpretive power resides exclusively in those who occupy positions of state power, positing instead that each person operates as a parallel steward of legal meaning within their own sphere of action and influence. This parallel stewardship enables individuals to live according to their interpretations, promote them openly, and contribute to the ongoing evolution of societal consensus without requiring formal state machinery. The framework further recognizes that official leaders, regardless of the means by which they ascend to their roles, administer law at the macro level while remaining subject to the same interpretive processes available to any citizen. Individuals, acting as if they occupy the position of administrator, evaluate and apply law in daily contexts, thereby balancing the practical power held by governance institutions with autonomous judgment grounded in unfiltered personal experience. This dual-track model of administration ensures that law remains tethered to the realities of human interaction rather than detached elite consensus. The individual's role extends beyond passive compliance to active participation in shaping how law is understood and observed, fostering a dynamic equilibrium between centralized enforcement and decentralized meaning-making. Such participation rests on the recognition that governance models grant enforcement capacity to authorities but confer no inherent epistemic or moral superiority in determining legal content or validity. Esper Sovereign Individualism embodies an aspirational orientation toward mature human sovereignty in which widespread exercise of interpretive and expressive rights produces more adaptive, liberty-aligned outcomes in complex social orders. The doctrine maintains that authorities must accommodate or engage individual declarations of legal meaning because their own collective understandings remain provisional and subject to the same limitations that affect any human interpreter. This hopeful stance does not negate the practical realities of state power, but insists that such power operates legitimately only when it respects the primacy of individual judgment in the realm of meaning. The result is a legal and social order sustained by continuous dialogue between official administration and citizen stewardship, wherein law evolves through the contributions of those most directly affected by its application. In this manner, Esper Sovereign Individualism advances a vision of governance that prioritizes the autonomous capacity of the individual to define, articulate, and uphold justice within the broader human experience. The fluid and constructed character of law. Law exists as a human artifact subject to variation in wording, interpretation, and enforcement across different jurisdictions, cultural contexts, and historical periods. Statutes and regulations emerge from legislative processes influenced by prevailing conditions and are subsequently applied selectively according to the priorities of those in power at any given moment. Unwritten societal norms and natural principles of justice operate alongside these formal provisions, creating a multifaceted body of guidance that shifts in response to changing realities. The constructed nature of law ensures that no single formulation remains fixed or universally binding in its application, as enforcement mechanisms adapt to immediate circumstances while broader conceptual foundations persist across generations. This fluidity manifests through election cycles, administrative transitions, and longer arcs of societal development spanning decades or centuries. What constitutes a binding rule in one era or locale may receive different emphasis or outright modification in another, reflecting the subjective perspectives of successive interpreters. Reasons for application range from immediate public order to long-term civilizational considerations, yet each instance of enforcement carries inherent selectivity shaped by the capacities and incentives of the administering body. Natural law, cultural expectations, and temporal contingencies interact with written provisions to produce outcomes that diverge from original textual formulations, underscoring the non-static quality of legal reality. The subjective character of law further reveals itself in the collective understandings maintained by governance structures. Groups of officials arrive at consensus through internal deliberation, yet such agreement represents one interpretive possibility among many rather than an objective or authentic determination. Written statutes may be read literally or purposively, while unwritten rules derive authority from lived practice and natural alignment with liberty and tranquility. Because law serves as an instrument for regulating human interactions, its meaning remains open to ongoing refinement by all participants in society, with no layer of regulation immune to re-examination or re-articulation in light of fresh perspectives or altered conditions. The structural limitations of ascended leadership. Individuals reach positions of governmental authority through diverse pathways that frequently prioritize political acumen, networks, financial support, or institutional alignment over demonstrated expertise in legal foundations or broad societal consequences. Once installed, these administrators inherit established decision-making frameworks that constrain their capacity to evaluate every ramification of policy or enforcement choices. The ascent process itself introduces distortions, as leaders navigate competing pressures that diverge from the direct experiences of those subject to the laws they administer. Consequently, official interpretations and applications often reflect the exigencies of maintaining power rather than an unmediated grasp of justice or empirical outcomes. Special interests, political agendas, and financial considerations exert continuous influence on leaders, pulling decisions toward directions that may not align with the common good or natural principles of liberty. Limited time and filtered information further impair the ability of any single administrator or small collective to anticipate spillover effects, future consequences, or the differential impact of rules across varied populations and contexts. Reactive modes of governance predominate, with responses shaped by immediate crises or institutional inertia instead of comprehensive foresight. The result is a pattern of enforcement that, while lawful within the governance model, frequently diverges from the fuller understanding available to those operating at the broadest level of daily human experience. Governance models confer enforcement authority upon these ascended figures, yet such grants do not equate to superior capacity for determining legal meaning or just application. Leaders operate within inherited constraints that may perpetuate prior distortions rather than resolve them, even when the individuals in question originally emerged from broader societal strata. The structural reality of power therefore necessitates ongoing scrutiny from those outside official roles, as the very mechanisms that elevate administrators simultaneously limit their perspective and introduce motivations unrelated to the impartial administration of law. This limitation underscores the necessity for independent interpretive activity by citizens who face the direct consequences of legal decisions. The sovereign individual's interpretive adeptness and primacy. Every individual possesses the capacity to comprehend the complexities of law with equal adeptness to any authority or collective body, extending beyond current applications to encompass the foundations, origins, and broader societal scope of legal provisions. This comprehension includes the historical genesis of statutes, the interplay between written rules and natural principles, and the cultural and temporal factors that shape their ongoing relevance. Grounded in unfiltered lived experience, the individual evaluates law through personal stakes and direct observation, yielding interpretations that frequently capture nuances unavailable to those insulated by institutional filters. Such adeptness enables autonomous decision-making that propels personal and communal trajectories without reliance on external dictation. The sovereign individual exercises interpretive primacy by applying this understanding to every layer of law, positive statutes, both current and historical, unwritten societal expectations, and natural precepts of justice and liberty. Within their own sphere, individuals administer these interpretations exactly as leaders do at the state level, deciding compliance, shaping associations, and promoting aligned conduct. This parallel administration constitutes an autonomic imperative that balances the practical power of governance with independent judgment, ensuring that law serves the realities of human existence rather than abstract or elite-derived formulations. The individual's reading stands independent of official consensus, drawing legitimacy from reason, experience, and alignment with freedom and quality of life. Interpretive primacy further entails the rejection of automatic deference to ascended leaders, whose perspectives remain subject to the same limitations as any other interpreter. Individuals at the broadest level maintain clearer vantage points on spillover benefits or negatives, future consequences, and the differential effects of rules across diverse circumstances. This vantage enables them to formulate and advance understandings that tether law more closely to civilizational tranquility and empirical outcomes. The framework therefore positions the sovereign individual as a necessary corrective force, capable of sustaining legal order through decentralized stewardship while preserving the autonomy essential to genuine liberty. Expressive sovereignty and the right to declare legal meaning. The sovereign individual holds the inherent right to communicate, articulate, and publicly declare interpretations of law, including direct statements to authorities concerning what any provision means, should mean, or must not become. This expressive sovereignty encompasses the ability to insist upon personal readings of textual, conceptual, or natural law dimensions and to advocate for corresponding applications in specific situations or across society at large. Declarations may address written statutes, historical precedents, unwritten norms, or natural principles, framed through the individual's comprehensive grasp of legal origins and consequences. Such expression forms an integral component of participation in social order, protected by the fundamental nature of human communication and association. Authorities operating under collective interpretations lack legitimate power to suppress or penalize the act of declaring alternative legal meanings solely on the grounds of divergence from official consensus. Governance models may sustain enforcement according to prevailing understandings, yet they cannot lawfully prohibit citizens from voicing contrary definitions or demanding alignment with those definitions. The individual retains the standing to inform administrators that a particular statute carries a specific intent or implication derived from foundational analysis, and this communication occurs without forfeiting the protections inherent to expressive rights. The resulting interaction places official views in ongoing dialogue with citizen perspectives rather than elevating the former to conclusive status. This expressive dimension resolves apparent conflicts between individual declarations and collective governance by affirming that no authority possesses a monopoly on legal meaning. Individuals may transmit their understandings through available channels, thereby influencing enforcement priorities or broader normative shifts without claiming the state's coercive apparatus. The doctrine maintains that authorities must recognize the provisional character of their own readings and engage the expressive contributions of sovereign individuals as legitimate inputs into the legal order. Through such open articulation, law remains responsive to the full range of human insight rather than confined to the interpretations of those temporarily holding institutional power. Conclusion. Esper Sovereign Individualism. The individual's equal right to interpret law. Esper Sovereign Individualism integrates the parallel administration of law, the structural limitations of leadership, the interpretive adeptness of the individual, and the right of expressive declaration into a unified account of mature sovereignty. This integration affirms that governance models grant practical enforcement capacity without transferring conclusive authority over meaning or justice. Individuals exercise their primacy by interpreting every dimension of law and communicating those interpretations openly, thereby sustaining a legal order grounded in liberty, natural principles, and empirical reality. The framework produces adaptive outcomes by distributing stewardship across the entire populace, ensuring that law evolves through the contributions of those who experience its effects most directly. The aspirational character of the doctrine lies in its expectation that widespread adoption of these practices yield societies characterized by greater civilizational tranquility and authentic justice. Sovereign individuals, operating without blind deference, propel their own trajectories while holding authorities accountable to higher standards of alignment with freedom and human flourishing. Authorities, in turn, function most legitimately when they accommodate the interpretive and expressive activity of citizens, recognizing that their collective consensus remains one perspective among many. This reciprocal dynamic transforms governance from a top-down imposition into a collaborative enterprise rooted in the autonomous judgment of each participant. Ultimately, Esper Sovereign Individualism establishes the individual as the foundational unit of legal and social order, equipped with the capacity and right to define, apply, and declare law in all its facets. The doctrine upholds the asymmetry between interpretive expressive primacy and state enforcement monopoly while insisting that the latter operates legitimately only in service to the former. Through this structure, societies achieve resilience and coherence without sacrificing the liberty that arises when every person stewards the principles that govern human interaction. The result is a hopeful vision of order sustained by the ongoing, uncoerced contributions of sovereign individuals who collectively maintain the living reality of law.